Hey, how's it going? If you're watching this, it's probably because you're trying to figure out if you're doing this whole startup thing right. You might have an idea and you're trying to launch it. You're past your minimum viable product and you're just trying to see if you can get traction, whether it's through customers, whether it's through investors, whether it's through strategic partners to deliver your product offering. And I just wanted to share my story to kind of give you a behind the scenes feel, more feeling, rather than the actual strategy I used on what it felt like for me to get my first customer slash partner with my startup. And the main purpose of this video, honestly, is just to kind of lift the hood and be pretty transparent so that when you go on your own journey, because everyone's is different, you don't feel horrible for feeling the way that you're feeling. Because everyone's got a different experience, but we're all on the same journey when it comes to starting a business, right? So my startup was called TwoSpace. This is over a decade ago now, because now I lead a team in a corporate company, similar industry and product offering, but story for another time. And we turned restaurants that were closed during the day into a network of co-working spaces, right? So it was a sharing economy play, and we did extremely well at the beginning because we were the first to come up with the idea and concept. But, because we didn't scale correctly, because we didn't take on investment, which might have been a good idea at certain points, but we decided to bootstrap. And because ultimately of COVID, that idea went to shit, went to zero. But the point of this story is to tell you about how we started, right? And the idea is important because I'll explain to you how we didn't even get our first paying customer of actually using the co-working space, but our first venue. Because when you think about the model, I need restaurants to provide the service in the first place to get people to sign up and use it, right? Because at the very beginning, it was a gym style pass model, right? Super cheap because I wasn't paying rent on the restaurant space because they're already paying rent when you think about it for the full day and evening. So the restaurants that only opened at nighttime, during the day, they in theory would love to give it to me to monetize. And I needed the first one. So, and honestly, the number keeps changing every time I tell this story. Not to discredit myself, but it was so long ago, it feels like thousands, but I think it was around 250. I reckon it was around 250 restaurants that I spoke to. And they all were like, nah, no, thank you. We don't want to be the first. What about insurance? What if I give you the space and someone trips over or burns it down? What's going to fucking happen then? So we got a lot of no's, right? And honestly, it didn't take us to the whole 250 no's, let's call it that number, before we changed our strategy. I knew after the first 5 that we kind of had to tell our story a bit differently. And by that, I mean, after the first 5 rejections, I was like, they've all got very valid concerns, right? What if someone does burn their place down? What if something does happen within their space that isn't covered by their insurance? And it made me realize we had to get this venue party excited beyond just to share in some of the revenue we could make of the space. Because even though I realized that after the first 5, and you'll feel it within your own product offering as well when you get feedback, even before you launch, if something's off. And that doesn't mean get paralysis by over-analysis. You'll just know. I knew I couldn't just keep going till I get someone saying yes because it was a numbers game, right? Speak to 1,000 restaurants till I find the first one. Because my co-founder at the time was super smart and complemented my skill set really well, which was more in branding and sales. And he actually built in code, and this was before vibe coding and everything, with Google Maps and everything. It would spit out every single restaurant within an area close to where we lived and worked that was closed during the day, right? And so that would be my hit list, because I realized when I tried to cold call these numbers, they were all busy during trade hours or they weren't picking up when they were closed. And even if I did get them during trade hours, they're like, dude, I'm trying to run a restaurant, get lost. The best time to talk to them was right before they opened and physically by being there, like see like the door close sign and knocking and say, hey, how's it going? And giving the elevator pitch, right? And I remember like it was yesterday, just the day I realized it wasn't working. And this wasn't because I was being selfish or, you know, being weak, I guess. It was pissing down rain, but I committed to visit at least 50 restaurants in the Potts Point area within Sydney. And I had my umbrella and it was raining and I was knocking and I kept getting rejected, even though we thought we were being a bit smarter about it. And then I was like, there's got to be a better way to do this, because it's not that I wasn't convinced I could not get someone to say yes eventually. It's just that it felt like an uphill battle, but one that just there's got to be a better way, right? And every time a restaurant owner would say no to me, going, "Oh, this co-working thing sounds cool, but I don't want to be the first, or there's risk to it. Or have you done it anywhere else? Oh, how much does it suck if you've got a new concept and like, have you done it anywhere else?" I'm like, no, that's why I'm bringing it to you. It could be the first. That's the opportunity. We had to change our approach. And I felt awful, man, because I had this idea with my co-founder. We were so excited and we couldn't even get off the start line, right? Because we couldn't even get the venue to then try and get our first actual customer, because we built the tech, we had the branding, we had even some press interested to do the story, which would be good for brand recognition and even some eyeballs at the beginning, but we couldn't get the first venue. So then I really kind of took a step back and was like, okay, if I was a restaurant owner and someone just knocked on my door, no matter how good the idea was, would I give them the keys to my venue? I mean, ask yourself that question right now. Answer's no, right? A resounding no. Because who the fuck was I back then? I had no track record on anything. This was my first startup, right? It was a long time ago. So then I was like, hey, okay, so if the problem for me is credibility and track record, how do I get someone with credibility and track record to be part of the narrative, part of the story? And by that, for me, it wasn't going to be an individual, because then that would require some sort of, equity split or payment or investor or strategic, or like too much time. It was more, for me, it was more of an operational partner. Like, what are the kit of parts I need, the moving parts I need to actually deliver this service offering? And one of the missing parts was internet, right? Because we couldn't rely on the restaurant's internet to deliver this co-working offering. And by the way, if you're listening to this and you think this idea could still work today, because I know it will, and you want to give it a shot, just drop something in the comments. I'll send you all of our old stuff, right? Give it a hot crack. Because even though I would know how to do this with my eyes closed now in a very optimized way, I don't have the energy for building something from scratch anymore. I enjoy doing YouTube videos and other stuff on the side much, much more, right? So it was like, okay, so the internet piece, what if we could get a well-renowned telecommunications partner or an internet provider to be that really sexy, heavyweight hitting brand to deliver the internet with us, that we could then kind of dangle in front of a venue partner, right? And to cut that story short, very serendipitously, at some point, I was on a panel, at a hackathon, doing my thing, because I was pretty ingrained within the startup community, and the chief innovation officer at Optus was sitting next to me, right? Serendipity, preparedness, and luck. And I was like, hey, no commitments, no signatures, but this is our concept. We need internet. If I can get a venue, would you be prepared to at least pilot that first venue or first 5 with your Wi-Fi and your internet? And that way I can give a bunch of free co-working memberships or desks to a bunch of your innovation lab members and customers. And Nick at the time was like, fuck yeah, let's do it. So then I was able to actually very strategically email out. I didn't even door-to-door knock, right? Because I wanted to take that intrusion away from it and just write a very concise, cryptic email, but really leverage the Optus brand. So I remember I sent a couple of emails out because it wasn't an email blast. I wanted to be surgical about this because I wanted to test the responses, and if they'd respond and then recraft if I had to. It wasn't a lazy blast out. And it was almost like, hey, we're launching a concept where we could monetize and turn your restaurant into a co-working space with Optus, right? Big brand within Australia. And it's to help the startup community in the ecosystem, but also food and beverage operators such as yourself with their rent obligation. And then one of the restaurants responded. And it was called Cassoni at the time, owned by Jules and Nathan. And I still remember they were like, it was that fucking email that caught our attention. They were like, what is this? And then we got to meet. And because it wasn't me intruding when they were trying to get shit done and set up their restaurant, you know, so I took away the hustle mentality and ego, and I'll just kind of, because, you know, you see a lot of content out there where it's very aggressive sales, where it's like, oh, you know, this is how you handle, this is the script, this is how you handle no's, and it comes across as too aggressive for me, you know. I'm a genuine believer, coming from someone who still does sales today. I'm very solution orientated. You listen and then you solve problems. You don't force something down someone's throat. And be patient. You don't have to close them on the call. And I know a lot of people will think that's the coward's way out, but if you deliver value, you listen and you play the long game, right? And you leave a good impression and you keep doing good things publicly so they see you doing it, I think that opportunity will come around in the end. Yeah, but I remember the guys were like, oh, that email really got us. The Optus thing really got us, and our curiosity got the better of us. But then when we met you and we were a bit more open to hear the idea, that's when it resonated with us. So if you'd like to hear the full story, I've got a whole hour of me jabbering at you, unedited, where I talk about my whole startup experience, the full 6 years, how we hit a $10 million valuation. You can check that out. I'll put it in the link in the description, but the point of this video is for anyone out there trying to figure out their first customers, partners, or whatever, and they're struggling. It's all part of the experience. Embrace it, right? Because before you know it, you might get traction and you're going to have other problems to deal with, you know, like margin. I think profit's the key thing. Don't worry about users all the time. Figure out how you can make your business profitable so you don't have to go begging for money, right? So hopefully that was helpful. And yeah, take care of yourself. Good luck. I'll speak to you again soon.